Matthew Barnaby joins us, 18th all-time in penalty minutes. And Barney, you're going to jump right into it. If you don't mind, I see you're back home. Glad to see you traveled safely. Bomber Boy in Calgary writes in, and he says, hey, it feels like the NHL kept the new Ottawa owner in the dark about the Dadonov ordeal. Does Ottawa have a legitimate bone to pick with how the NHL handled the sale of the Senators? Can we jump right into it? You must have thoughts on that.
Yeah, nice to be on, buddy. Keep up the good work. And ridiculous that you spend almost $1 billion American and you are kept out of the dark, not only of the Dadonov thing, but the Shane Pinto thing. Inexcusable. Yeah, I mean, this is, you have a guy that's coming into the league as a new-time owner. You know, he was part of the Montreal Canadiens in a limited ownership. I think it was 20%. But transparency should have been there from Gary Bettman, Bill Daly, the whole NHL, and Pierre Dorian, who's a friend of mine. All of this should have been on the table, so he's not walking into this. There's so much hope at the start of the year, and now it's like doom and gloom. And the next probably to go is going to be DJ Smith if they don't turn this around very quickly. So Michael Andlauer is great for the Ottawa Senators, but total bush league what's happened to him over the last 30 days.
Well, my first thought was this. Going to Mr. Andlauer, do you want to go back on the deal? Do you want your money back? What do you think? Is he just complaining, or is it, you know what I mean? What would he say, do you think?
No, I still think he wants to be an NHL owner. I just don't think this is the way he wanted to come into it. You know, it was all great and ovations at the rink, and then now it's, you know, you get the Shane Pinto thing for what it is. You get the Dadonov thing for what it is. It's just, you know, it's not how you want to start your tenure as a brand new owner. You want to start and have it exciting. And right now, there's nothing exciting about the Ottawa Senators off the ice, on the ice, and losing that first round pick, which is huge. They have a lot of great young players, but no, I don't think he would go back on the deal. I think he's still very excited to be an NHL owner. Unfortunately, last 30 days has been pretty darn tough for him.
I tell you what, here's a fun one for you, Barney. I don't know you that well, but I know you well enough that I think you'd enjoy this. Sens fans booed their team the other day, and Brady Tkachuk said he didn't like it. Leafs fans booed their team last night. Then they come back and win. After all the time I've spent here in South Florida, I haven't, until now, lived in America like you. I feel like the glare on Canadian NHL teams is way more intense than on NFL teams in America. Canadian NHL versus on any of their teams. New York aside, Yankees, Giants, that's another animal. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just, man, it's intense in Canada. I got to see why coaches and players, some say no thanks.
Yeah, it's not easy, and I'd agree with you. You know, the NFL is the biggest sport in North America, but it's not under a microscope and played out the way that it is in Canada. We can go to Calgary when they're playing bad. I know the pressure. I was just out in Vancouver. Fortunately for that team, they're playing very well. Edmonton, what's going on there? You can't go to a city and not talk about their sports teams. It's just impossible. Every conversation revolves around their NHL team. And that's what the same thing is in New York, because there's so many different teams that play within a 20-mile radius. So, you know, you might get one team or another, but it's not like pulling into Edmonton or Vancouver or Calgary, wherever it may be. You are going to have a conversation about that hockey team. So a lot of guys don't want that pressure. I understand, and I love Brady Tkachuk coming to the defense of DJ Smith. It's not fun getting booed. It's not fun getting booed, and I understand it. And the hardest thing is trying to get out of a funk when you feel like everyone's against you. And yeah, these guys, everyone works hard. It just comes down, and I watched the Edmonton game the other day, yesterday, on my way home. Listen, I had enough problems with my New York Jets. That's another story for another day. But a team like Edmonton, they just don't defend well. And it's not like they aren't trying. They're just, attention to detail is very little, and they can't get a stop. Calgary has a lot of those same problems. So I think when you look at good teams and bad teams, the good teams consistently are good defensively. You're going to have times where you go through maybe a week or two where you have trouble scoring, but your staple always has to be defense.
Well, sure. Defense wins championships, save for the 80s Oilers, and we'll never see that again. Well, it seems to be a popular question in the NHL right now. If you were running the Oilers, what do you do first?
Man, well, so there's no way if they lose to San Jose coming up that they don't have a new coach in place by, let's say, Thursday or Friday. I think it's impossible to go ahead. They need to stop. They need goaltending, and unfortunately, they put themselves in a place with their salary cap that Jack Campbell they thought was the answer after 3/4 of a good year in Toronto. I never thought that was the right answer. Skinner was great last year, but they need a save. But this team just has to commit to playing hard defensively. And right now, it's not going to come from the outside. It has to come from within. And you can see the frustration building, not only with the coaching staff, but the players. And the media is not going to stop asking the questions until they turn it around. So they have a big game coming up, and I don't think there's any way Woodcroft lasts if they lose to the San Jose Sharks, who are a borderline AHL team right now.
I saw them here; they're awful. But this is the conundrum. You see teams turfing coaches all the time that are bad teams. We went into the year; the Oilers were like hands down Canada's best team. Like, what the hell's going on? This shouldn't happen, and it shouldn't happen, man.
Well, you look at San Jose at the start of the year. You're not going to can their coach right now, right? Like, no one expected them to be good. Ottawa, we expected them to take a step forward. Montreal, you're not canning Marty St. Louis if you're 10 games under 500 through 50 games. The expectations are what sets the parameters on how we judge these coaches. So, Edmonton is expected to be a top-tier team and compete for a Stanley Cup. And if they aren't anywhere near that, well, you can't trade all these players. You're not trading Connor McDavid. You're not trading Leon Draisaitl. You're not trading a lot of those guys, and some of the guys are untradeable. So it's where you go. They're going to try and pick your good players from you. The only other way to do it is through a coaching change, and hopefully you gain a spark. You don't have a lot of options.
Bingo. Lastly, I want to say this. I've been waiting to mention it to you while we have had Ted Nolan on since you were last on. And I told, well, maybe you guys speak regularly. I don't know. But I told him, that you love him, man. And that's the first time I've ever talked about him on camera or not. What a gem. What a gem, man. I mean, did you still ever figure out what went down in Buffalo? Because I get the sense he doesn't. I mean, he's moved on, but he did. What a scar.
Yeah, listen, I know probably 90% of stuff that went on. In the end, John Muckler and Teddy did not get along. They didn't agree with the personnel that should be there. And I love Teddy, but there's stuff when you have bosses, you have to be very careful on how you deal with it. Having said that, we love Teddy. I always liked John Muckler. God rest his soul. He drafted me. But there was just so much stuff behind the scenes every single day. We used to call it the schmozzle because you had no clue what was going to happen when we walked into that rink. But Teddy is talking about transparency and a great person, a great family man, a great coach, a great friend. He is all the above. He doesn't pretend to be anything more than just a great guy and a guy that loves the game of hockey. So love him. Don't talk to him as much as I probably should. And after this, I'm going to reach out because you reminded me, stay in touch with the people you really love in this world. He certainly is one of those guys.
Yeah, he's got a book out, and I won't keep you because your dog obviously needs to get outside. Life in Two Worlds is his new book, and I just feel like you and I'd love to just talk about it. We need another 2.5-hour drive together to talk about all this stuff. But 2 years later, the Sabres are in the Stanley Cup final. So as dysfunctional as it was, they ended up doing something right. I don't know. So, Barney, listen, thanks again. Enjoy the hockey. Hopefully we can do it again soon.
Hey, cheers. Enjoy the weather. Have a great day. And Western Canada, love you guys.
Thanks, bud. 18th all-time in NHL penalty minutes and best-selling author, Matthew Barnaby.